Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jared, and I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics, and no one's going to judge you or roast you or make fun of you or call you a cuck or a libtard or a fascist. This is everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. What is up? Anything debating? Great to see you again. What is up, Mom? Thank you for that. Everyone is welcome here. Republicans, Democrats. This is not a fighty show. This is not a show for, debating or anything like that. I know there's a lot of really popular shows out there where, Democrats and Republicans yell at each other and call each other names and fight each other. That is not this show. What is up, D. Scott? Great to see you again. So if that's the kind of show you're looking for, then you can go look somewhere else. But this show is just good faith engagement on the substance. Somebody whose name I can't pronounce or can't read says, "Do you like Poland?" I like Poland fine. I don't know too much about the politics of Poland, but I support the citizens of every country. Now, it says, what are the positive things about tariffs? Tariffs can be positive if they're used very specifically, like they should be used surgically. That is not the way that Trump is using the tariffs. Trump is using the tariffs like a shotgun, which is not helpful in surgery. But yeah, they're supposed to be very targeted, very specific countries, very specific industries, very specific resources, as opposed to what Trump is doing, where he's just tariffing every country depending on who bribes him or does not bribe him. Shahar Kamin says, opinion on Israel. I am for the citizens. I'm against the government. Jenny says, is it legal for Trump to put his name on currency? I'm actually not really sure about that. The way that it's being reported makes it seem as though it is up to him and the Treasury Department to decide that. And, where Congress could stop him, or maybe a head of Treasury who isn't just a total toady sycophant. Lucas says, if you voted in the UK, who would you vote for? One of the left-wing parties like Greens or, Greens or Labor. Skippy says, do you think diversity tears at the social fabric of a nation? No, it is a useful tool for billionaires and right-wing people and oligarchs to use diversity to try to divide and conquer. But if people don't fall for it, then diversity can be the strength of a nation. Independent outsider Dave says, how do we economically recover from the Iranian war? That is a massive question, independent outsider. But yeah, it's gonna take a lot of global cooperation to do that. It's gonna take a lot of smart investing in American industry and what do you call it? Paco Knight, you're spamming the comments, so I'm just gonna go ahead and block you, my guy. Ooh, isn't ICE used wrong than when it was first created? Yeah. I think it's more accurate to say that ICE is kind of doing what they've always done, but they're doing it more and worse. And so we're just kind of like seeing how the rot at ICE is, being brought to the surface. Right. Somebody asked, do you support Palestine? I support the citizens of Palestine, but I do not support Hamas. Akshay says, what will happen with the war with boots being on the ground soon? I mean, it's good. There's going to be escalation. There's going to be more American service members who will be injured and killed. There will be more civilian casualties in Iran. There will potentially be Iranian attacks on American allies in the region, potentially even, one of the things that Iran is really good at doing is aligning with proxy terrorist organizations where they can kind of like accomplish things like, very specific targeted terrorist organizations where the Iranian government doesn't have to kind of like get their hands dirty. Muzz King, Triska, and D. Scott, thank you so much. Helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Overstay says, do you like Hassan Piker? I do. I don't agree with him on everything, but I think that people like him are a net positive because they are making being interested in politics more more popular amongst young people, and I think that young people need to be more focused on politics. What's up, Tyro? I'll do my best, but no guarantees. All right. Cacpec says, is it Iran or the USA who's blocking the Arab Gulf so the oil gets more expensive? Technically, it's Iran, but we're attacking them. We've started a war with them. Vanity and Nixon, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. So yeah, that's their purview, but I mean, it's a little inaccurate to say that they are doing it when they are doing it in retaliation against the West. Okay, Zeb says, translated the King's protests were mad Trump won, so we're gonna throw another tantrum. Zeb, do you think that any protest is good? Like, do you think that Republicans protesting things is good? Do you think that MAGA protesting things is good? Or is it only when left-wing people protest things that you think that it's a temper tantrum? Stephen Peterson says, the No Kings protest had a good turnout. Would you be able to explain what No Kings is about? Yeah, so the No Kings movement is a bunch of different complaints about the Trump administration that all kind of fall under the umbrella of there's no more oversight anymore. There's no balance of powers. There's no checks and balances. Like, that's the entire point of the American government, is that the president is not an all-powerful dictator, and that there are specific things that Trump has done and that his administration has done that are being enabled by a Republican Congress because they are not stopping him from behaving like a king. And so basically anything that you can think of that Trump is doing that is illegal, immoral, unethical, barbaric, unconstitutional, like all of that is king shit because the Republican Party in Congress and the Republicans in the judiciary are not doing their job of stopping it. Cacbeck says, thoughts on that Trump is in the Epstein files. It makes a lot of sense that he's in there. Like those of us who've been paying attention to this issue for a while have known that the two of them have been buddies. That he's in there. If you listen to the people who have seen the unredacted files, they will tell you that there is actionable and indictable evidence in the files for individuals, but that information has not been released to the public yet. Right now, it just looks bad as opposed to being like wildly illegal. Mac33 says, do you think if he was a king dictator like you say, you would get away with making this video? That's a really good question, Mac. Would you like me to respond to it, or are you just here to cast aspersions? Let me know if you actually want a response. Christopher says, oh, yes, he was sent an arrest warrant in 2024. Who? Trump was? I don't think that's accurate. Kathy says, sleeper cells, question mark? Potentially. Max says, yes, respond. Okay, yeah, so there is not, at present, totalitarian control of all free speech in America. But that does not mean that Trump is not trying to achieve that goal. He is attacking people for freedom of speech the way that a dictator would. He is consolidating power the way that a dictator would. He is ignoring the courts and breaking the law the way that a dictator would. He is engaging in massive corruption and stealing taxpayer dollars the way that a dictator would. So yeah, the voices that are getting through is not evidence that Trump is not being a dictator. But if Trump had his way, then yes, my voice would be silenced and I would potentially be thrown in jail for what I am saying. Okay, Chicago says the FCC is threatening to take away broadcasting licenses. That is accurate. That is also, another example of what I'm talking about. OG Blunt Buddy says, no, he's not. Stop lying, you smooth brain. So that's an example of the kind of comment that gets you blocked. Let's see here. Christopher says, but replace the word dictator with Soviet mole. ¿Por qué no los dos, Christopher? I am open to the argument that, Trump is a Russian agent because he is doing everything that a Russian agent would, but he's also doing a lot of things that a Chinese agent would be doing as well. So I think that it is likely, that he is a servant of many masters. Okay, Christopher says, I am a counter-intel expert and a candidate. Take my word for it. Since I do not know you, Christopher, and I do not believe that is actually your profile picture, there, then no, I don't think that we should take anybody's word for it. You got to take everything that you see on the internet with a massive grain of salt. You should double check everything that you hear, including from me, but especially from Christopher Nelson Rathbone. And D. Scott, Triska, and Muzzking, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal today. That means it's finger hearts o'clock, the best part of every day. Mon says, love your Spanish. Gracias, mi amigo. Estoy aprendiendo, pero hay muchas palabras que yo no sé todavía. Okay, Texas Rangers fan says, who'd you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot. John Abbott says, if he was a real dictator, you couldn't complain about him. Shows a fundamental ignorance of how modern technology has changed the way dictatorships function. That is accurate, John Abbott. John Abbott doesn't miss. Cac Peck says, has Trump put out too many tariffs? Yes, 100%. Ronald Conway says, you mean like the way Biden did used censorship to block our free speech? So, Ronald, I do not think that you can give me an example of a single time that the Biden administration violated the First Amendment that is anywhere close to the way that the Trump administration is violating the First Amendment. Okay, Ronald Conway says Facebook. Yeah, no, that is not even close. That is not even close. You know, they said, hey, maybe you want to try to do this because it might be better for people. Yeah, same thing with Twitter, Ronald. All of that is misinformation. Congratulations, you are in question jail. If you do not ask a question, you're going to get booted. Okay, to everybody else, welcome to the live stream. My name is Jarrett. Texas Ranger says, are you a Democrat? Zuckerberg testified he was told to silence Republicans. So I don't think that that's accurate, Texas Ranger, but also I do not believe that Zuckerberg is a good faith person in this debate. If you read anything about Mark Zuckerberg, the dude does not give a fuck about anything but his own money and power. So I would describe him as a right-wing tech authoritarian. Texas Ranger says under oath. Yeah, I don't think that he told the truth. Yeah, if that is what he said again. Delano says, best Marco Rubio impression. I would, but because of where my cameras are, I don't think I can get on my knees right now. Max says, Zuckerberg admitted that the Biden administration pressured them to silence conservatives. Again, Mac, inaccurate. I have not seen any credible reporting to say that that is accurate at all. Let's see here. Ziu Kazu says, opinion on socialism. It depends on how you define it. I do not. I think that if you ask 100 people to define socialism, they'll give you a different definition. The way that I define socialism is that we all pay taxes and then we use those taxes to pay for things that help everybody. So that's the reason why we call universal healthcare socialized medicine, because it is taking healthcare and doing like the socialist version of it. And I'm for that. I think that that's dope as hell. I think we need more shit like that, especially in industries where capitalism has failed in ways that have made home ownership or getting a college education or getting healthcare prohibitively expensive. Like, we should see socialized versions of those industries so that capitalism will have to compete with them. Akshay says, thoughts on the bunker that is being built under the ballroom? It's pretty weird and a massive waste of resources and energy. I think it's instructive that while so many Americans are struggling, he is focused explicitly on redecorating and construction projects for his own vanity. I think everybody should be pretty pissed off about that. Isaac says, do you believe in every man to his needs? That's a little bit more of the kind of like totalitarian communist argument, which I'm not really for. Like, I think that if we can sort of like address some of the inequities in pay disparity and income inequality, I don't think that we need to sort of like only give people what they need and only give them the jobs that they're best at. Miami Vibes says, all I hear is Trump bad, Dems good. Well, then you should turn up the volume, because that's not what I'm saying at all. Akshay says, is Trump going to plan on staying in that bunker before his term ends? I mean, that sounds, it's a fun conspiracy theory to think about. I haven't really seen any reporting to suggest that that is the case. All right. What Bod Sue says, will this be a forever war? So the term forever war has been a term that we use to describe wars that go on for way too long, like Iraq and Afghanistan. Both of those wars ended eventually, so not technically forever wars, but like, you know, if we're taking like the colloquial definition of what a forever war is, then 100% Iran is going to be another Iraq and Afghanistan, but it'll probably be worse because it is not nearly as well planned as Iraq and Afghanistan were, and Iran is a much bigger country. Ziu Kazuzu says, what do you think of the No Kings protest? I'm for it. Max says, there has been a bunker for years, like Iran, don't know what that means. Isaac says, do you believe in universal income and or housing? Yes. Kakbek says, would you personally consider Trump a racist? Yeah, 100%. Not only do I think he's a racist, but the racists think he's a racist. That's why they vote for him. Let's see here. What Boz Do says, when it hits $200 a gallon, what will that mean for the economy? I believe that's one of the strongest recession indicators. Isaac says, so you are a socialist. No, I'm not a socialist. I'm not a capitalist. I'm not a communist. I believe in a mixed model. Okay, Max says, if you want it, get a job and pay taxes. Mac, you were in question jail. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Nullvox says, they weren't wars because they didn't come from the congressional approval region of the U.S. What a weird way of phrasing that. But yeah, just because Congress didn't authorize it doesn't mean it's not a war. That's sort of like a semantic argument as opposed to a substantive argument. All right, Sang says, boomer liberals cost us a Bernie Sanders administration. No, that is not what happened. Most people didn't vote for Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders lost the election, you know, and as much as I would love to blame that on boomers specifically or the DNC, like he just lost the election, you know. And I campaigned for Bernie, so you know, this is coming from a quote unquote Bernie bro. Isaac says, would you say you're authoritarian or libertarian? If not either, then what are some of your beliefs on it? I am definitely not an authoritarian or a libertarian. Authoritarian is dictatorship by the government. Libertarian is dictatorship by the billionaire class. Kakpek says, should Kurdistan become an independent country? I know absolutely nothing about that. Ziu Kaziu says, a little bit off politics, but are you a Christian? I do not ascribe to any organized religion. I was raised Catholic. Z Kazu says, so are you an independent? No, I'm a registered Democrat, proud Democrat. Dark Death says, Jarrett Epstein. That's not a question, so I'm going to go ahead and block you. Aaron Gak says, Trump is a white supremacist and everyone who votes for him is a white supremacist. So it is not true that everybody who votes for Trump is a white supremacist. There are plenty of people who got tricked into voting for Trump that are perfectly nice people. I do not believe in disparaging other voters. Well, there are some people who voted for Trump because they're like, yeah, I'm a racist, he's a racist, I fucking love that. It would be inaccurate to describe every Republican voter, even every MAGA voter that way. Triska and Vanity, thank you so much for helping me reach my first finger hearts goal of the day. Isaac says, left lib is a belief that the working class should hold positions of power. I don't know if that's like how I would define left lib, but that's definitely, I do think that the working class needs more power and should be in more positions of power. I think that board of directors of major companies should have to have a certain number of workers, you know, on the board. Kakpek says, thoughts on communism. Depending on how you define it, the way that I define it is workers own the means of production, and I think that that's great. Tucker says, I'm not a big political guy. Educate me on why Republicans are in the wrong. So that's a massive question, Tucker, because basically any issue that you can think of, the Republicans are wrong on. The shortest way that I can explain this is that the Republican Party has, for at least the past 50 years, been pushing and legislating a trickle-down economics platform, meaning tax cuts for the rich, cutting regulations for their businesses so that the rich are getting like massively wealthier, and the belief being that that money will eventually trickle down and make us all more prosperous. And we are seeing after 50 years that has massively failed. Like income inequality is higher now than it was during the Gilded Age, which is an age that we named after how bad income inequality was. And yet the Republican Party is still doing it. Like every time that we see trickle-down economics failing, they just go, oh, the rich just need more money. They just need more money. They just need more money. and these companies just need fewer regulations and fewer regulations and fewer regulations, and these companies need to be bigger monopolies and bigger monopolies and bigger monopolies. And it's like every time it just works less. Like it's working less now than it did the last time they cut taxes for the billionaire class, and that worked less than the last time they cut taxes for billionaires. T. Gray says, good grief, there is no such thing as a Republican or a Democrat. They are both the same. That is inaccurate, T. Gray. Would you like me to go into more details on that? Chicago says, Democrats have also supported trickle-down economics as well. They're not without blame. That is inaccurate, Chicago. If over the past 50 years, every Democratic administration has raised taxes on the wealthy, and every Republican administration has cut taxes for the wealthy. Ziu Kazu says, what do you think about Israel? I support the citizens. I am against the government. Netanyahu is a war criminal. He is perpetuating a genocide against the people of Palestine. He is starting a war with every one of his surrounding nations, which is a very stupid and dangerous thing to do. Let's see here. Chicago says Clinton supported massive deregulation. That's true, but that's different than trickle-down economics. Clinton was at the forefront of what we call the neoliberal movement, which was sort of like a more business-friendly version of not being a Republican. But that does not mean that they perpetuated trickle-down economics. That just means that they were thinking like, well, we can tax the billionaire class and we tax these corporations, but maybe if we remove some red tape, maybe some of these monopolies could work out for the benefit of the working class. I mean, if we pair it with like regulating, like things for the working class. And I mean, I can give you a bunch of examples of worker regulations that happened under the Clinton administration, Okay, Chicago says welfare reform also occurred under Clinton. Again, that doesn't change my argument whatsoever. Eliminate all Floyd says opinion on total J death people. I don't know what that is. Eliminate all Floyds. Tucker says, I feel like I would be somewhere in the middle, maybe slightly more Republican, if anything. How come, Tucker? Didn't you just hear the thing that I said about how Republicans are in the pocket of the billionaire class and keep on fucking everything up? Okay, John Abbott says it's a play on It's Only Champagne if it's from the Champagne region of France. That's excellent, John Abbott. All right, Tony Baker says, what about Obama deportations? Why no retaliation with him as they do with Trump now? So, Tony, sincere question. Do you really believe that there is no difference between what ICE and Customs and Border Patrol are doing under Trump than they were doing under Obama? Like, sincere question. Do you think that the exact same things are happening? That is my question to you. Let me know. Cacpex says, do you like Joe Biden? I think that his administration was great. Whether it was great because of what he did or what his team did, I don't really care. It is true that Biden made some absolutely disastrous fucking decisions when he was president, like continuing to support Israel. Some of his immigration reform was like completely schizophrenic and, did not really do the Democratic Party any favors going into 24. But I think that everybody who has worked with Joe Biden will tell you he is a extremely empathetic person who has only wanted to do good in his life. Valentina says, do you support Israel or Palestine? I support the citizens of both of those countries. I do not support the governments of either of those countries. Tucker says, I agree with you. That's a problem, but neither side does anything or enough about it. Tucker, I don't think that is accurate. I can tell you a bunch of things that the Democratic Party has done to try to lift up the poor and the working class and try to make America a more equitable society. I can tell you a bunch of things that are different based on who is in charge. Like there are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act, which is only possible because Democrats were in charge. And there are women today who are dead because of abortion bans that are only possible because Republicans were in charge. So, yeah, I don't think that it is not true that neither side does anything or enough about it. And if you're wondering why the Democrats do more about it, because you believe that the Democrats haven't done enough. I also agree that the Democrats haven't done enough, but I don't think it's their fault. Maybe if we gave Democrats more power, maybe if we elected them to more seats, maybe if we let them stay in power for longer than a couple of months, they would be able to get more of that stuff done. Skippy says, do you find Trump funny? I don't find Trump funny at all. I know that some people like to give Trump credit for things like, well, he's good at communications, or he is kind of funny, and I'm just like, I just don't think that any of that stuff is true. Um, yeah, I thought Obama was funny, you know, but being able to get laughs from people who already love you does not mean that you're funny. Okay, Phil says Trump is funny to middle school kids. Yes, 100% accurate. Scott Atusek says, those Wexler just stand the are we winning yet since we're US stocks down 4.8 trillion? So those aren't questions. I'm not going to answer that. Tony Baker says, do you think it would be beneficial to make all chairs 50-50 Republican Democrats? So I don't know what you mean by chairs, but also no, because I don't think that the Republican Party is operating in good faith. I think they are trying to dismantle the government. They are engaging in cover-ups and giveaways for Trump and the billionaire class. Like what 100%, what would be the value of that? Tucker says, I like the way the Democrats help the poor, but they go about it all wrong. How do you figure, Tucker? Let me know what you think about that. TKS Daddy says, Germany told Pam Bondi is in the files as a recruiter. Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that. Cacpac says, thoughts on China. China is an authoritarian government. They do not have freedom of speech. They are engaged in ethnic cleansing of their Uyghur population. Now, it is true that the Chinese government has been able to accomplish incredible things like high-speed rail and massive investments into renewable energy and technology. Like the BYDs are fucking the best electric cars that exist right now. But that doesn't mean that it is better to be a citizen of China than it is to be a citizen of other countries. Like, I dare you to go to China and talk about that dude standing in front of the tank and see how the government treats you. Tucker says some of the help that is giving is way too long and not enough. It's an interesting perspective, Tucker. Like, and I get it. To me, and this is no tea, no shade. Like, I'm not saying that you're not an intelligent person or anything, but that to me seems like a very surface level critique of what the Democratic Party does. Like, the Democratic Party doesn't just give people money and then people just like live their lives on that money. Like, the Democratic Party also believes in like job placement and training and social security nets in a way that aren't just like massive handouts to people. The Democratic Party is not trying to keep people on welfare and Medicaid, but they believe in using it as a step stool out of poverty. So yeah, I'm not really sure. I've heard this argument from people on the right that the Democrats believe in a handout and Republicans believe in a hand up, but I've just never seen that. I've never seen that in the policy. I've never seen that in the way that they actually legislate. Let's see here. Guy Fox says the Democrats want everyone dependent on the social teat. No, that is inaccurate, Guy Fox. So, Guy, just to let you know, the thing. Oh, 1 second. Texan says, one last time you said abortion saves lives. I say it has cost 50 million lives. So, Texan, you and I disagree on whether or not a fetus is a life. So you say it costs 50 million lives. I say it has freed 50 million women from a life of poverty or from abusive relationships. But I think that we can both agree that a pregnant woman is a life. I mean, you think it's 2 lives, right? Because you're counting the fetus. And I'm telling you that right-wing Republican policies, anti-abortion policies, have killed pregnant women who were not trying to get abortions. But because those fetuses were threatening the lives of those pregnant women, and in certain states, those abortions were then illegal to give, those women then died. So we can agree, right, that that is a death that is caused by abortion bans, right? Okay, let's see here. Penguin says, shill for Israel. I don't know if that's a command. But if it is, the answer is no. Tony Baker says, what is your biggest concern for the U.S. on U.S. soil, not foreign wars as of right now? Cost of living, rampant inflation, toxic chemicals in our air and our water, If I was Maha, I would be so fucking pissed right now because the Trump administration has rolled back regulations on toxic pesticides and chemicals in our air and our water and in our food. So yeah, I'm extremely worried about my daughter who is going to be coming into this world in about a month. Like what is going to be going into her body? What is going to be damaging her cells? How much extra work do I need to do to protect her from cancer? Because the Trump administration just said that there can be more PFOS and glyphosate in all of our food and water and air and shit like that. All right, scrolling down to the bottom, Big Berto says, what about the chemtrails that the government has been releasing for decades? There is no evidence that chemtrails are a real thing. Thank you, Chad. I appreciate that. Evan says, what do you think about legislating based on morality? It's a little bit of a vague question, Evan. Like, I definitely think that we can be looking at government through the lens of morality, like, there but for the grace of God go I, do unto others. Like, would you like it if you were trapped in a cycle of poverty that was impossible to get out of because the billionaire class was constantly kicking you back down the ladder? But you know, where everything in government is concerned, like, it depends on whose morality you are using, you know? Hold on a second. Big Bear just says, you lied just now. CIA justifies that they have done it. I do not believe that is accurate, Big Berto, but also I'm not a liar. I did not lie. I told you what I am understanding is the reality of the situation, you know? I'm pretty up on shit like this, and I believe that if the CIA released files on chemtrails, that I would have heard about it. Tucker says, not a small about for 2 to 3 years. I don't know what that means, Tucker. Oh, wouldn't it make more sense to give people that are poor a house and good money for 6 months, not about 2 to 3 years? So hold on a second. Penguin says he's lying. So I don't really truck with people calling me a liar. Also, don't think that I'm pretty sure that Big Birdo is going to come out and say something shitty soon. Also, I should probably go ahead and block him now too. Rita Roo says, "Do you think the No Kings protests are a waste of time?" No, 100% they are not a waste of time. Tucker, let me get to this comment about that you're saying here. So there are a bunch of different mechanisms by which we can help people who are impoverished, and the time frame in which we allow them to exist on things like Social Security or welfare or whatever, I think it's dependent on people's individual situations. Like, I could imagine a situation where a person just needs 6 months of a place to live, a shower, a couple of bucks so that they can do their job interview and, you know, finally get back on their feet. But I can also imagine a situation where more robust government intervention is necessary. For example, we are looking at an unprecedented unemployment crisis brought about by both, you know, the emergence of AI technology, but also some of the policies of the Trump administration, where all these massive corporations are like, it is not profitable for us to hire people anymore because covering their health insurance is so much more expensive now. Because again, the Trump administration tripled everybody's healthcare costs. So yeah, I don't believe that it is counterproductive to keep people on that kind of assistance for longer, just based on some like sort of like made up metric of like what's an appropriate amount of time to help somebody. Now, here's the other thing that I would say, like, if you're worried about it because you think that's like a drain on you and your tax money specifically, I would argue that you are way more of your money is being wasted in loopholes for massively profitable corporations. Like, Walmart is stealing way more of your money than every single poor person combined. You know, stupid wars in the Middle East are taking way more of your money than every single poor person combined. So yeah, let me know what you think about that. All right, Tony Baker says, as I am in the military, what is your opinion? What is your opening opinion on Iran? Should they have nuclear capabilities? I don't think anybody should have nuclear capabilities, but there's a smart way to try to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, and there's a dumb way to try to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, and we are watching the dumbest way possible. Joe Dore says, what's Trump's next con so I can make money? buying those shares? I've got no fucking idea. Talk to fucking Stephen Miller. I'm sure he's got his finger on the pulse. Stephen Peterson says, in your opinion, is there anything Trump could do to become an okay person by the time his term ends? I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, if you walk into a school and kill 100 of the children that are in there, but then you pay for the college education of like 1,000 children, I don't think that makes up for the sin that you already did. Like the shit that Trump has done, the damage that he has done, the lives that he has ruined in both of his terms combined. But even if we're just grading him on what he's done this term, I think that is unforgivable. I think it is unfucking forgivable what he has done, what he's accomplished. All right, let's see here. Chicago says Obama had a nuclear deal in place that they were following. That is 100% accurate. Tucker says it's the same amount of money. You just get it fast enough to capitalize and not stay poor. I don't know if that's accurate, Tucker. But let's keep chatting about stuff. Kathy says, do you think he will last his 4-year term? Do you think because he has really terrible health, Kathy? People that suck, they tend to live forever. I don't know if you noticed. Irish Page says, what about Republicans trying to run as Dems but lying? I'm against that. And I think that we need ranked choice voting in order to suss those people out. Tony Paker says, what do you consider yourself religious-wise? I do not consider myself any religion. Okay. Evan says, legislating based on religious morality, like Catholic social values, for example. I don't think that's fair to people who have other religions or people that have no religion. Sky says, are you Democratic or Republican? I am a Democrat. I call myself a progressive Democrat. That is how I describe myself. Okay. Parker bit my finger says, bring me up. I'm going to say maybe, Parker. Let's see what we got going on here. Miss Lily says, what happened to Cuba? That is a very good question, Miss Lily. So the Trump administration decided on a maximalist approach to trying to topple the Cuban government by doing as much harm to the civilians in Cuba as possible. And I don't know if it's working. Like, it is true that people in Cuba are suffering, but now they're not mad at their own government. Now they're mad at our government instead. So I don't know how effective that policy has been. And I think that it's also interesting to note that the Trump administration is now, not only are they reversing that policy, but they're reversing that policy specifically for Russian oil. So who are the winners now in the Iran war? It is Iran, Cuba, China, and Russia. Like, make it make sense. Like, this is one of the most aggressive self-owns on the planet. Yeah. Imagine if you did a self-own that not only gave your opponent a point, but took away one of the points that you had gotten by kicking it into their goal. Chris says, if Democrats win the midterms and president, is the Republic still in danger? Yeah, 100%. People still need to do the work. Like, Democrats will not be able to solve every single problem on day one or even over a 4-year period. There will always be powerful interests working against Democrats trying to legislate for a better country and a more equitable society. If you look at, for example, when Obama got elected and he had this great progressive agenda, which was immediately torpedoed by the billionaire class that only allowed him to have a legislating majority in the Senate for about 8 months before America voted for, like Tea Party conservatives and shit like that. So, it's the same thing with Mamdani, where people are like, oh, Mamdani's doing such great work. And I'm like, yeah, he is. But you got to keep your eyes peeled because the billionaire class is coming for him and they are not going to stop. The same thing is going to happen if, God willing, 2028, Democrats fucking run the table and run the table in 26. What's up, Ecuadorian? Good to see you again. Magnus says, spoiler alert, his party is right about everything. The other party is wrong about everything. That is inaccurate, Magnus. The Democratic Party is not right about everything, but it is true that the Republican Party is wrong about everything. Bren says, then Republicans blocked Obama on everything. That is 100% accurate. Tony Baker says, do you believe Trump is the worst president ever? I'm not a historian, so I could not say if that is accurate or not. I will say that based on the information that I know about the presidents that I have lived through, Trump is potentially the worst president to have ever existed. I think it's very likely that he is the worst president that America has ever had. Like, the difference between every president that I've lived through, and I've lived through Reagan, both Bushes, Clinton, Obama, and Biden, Trump is so much worse of a president than all of those presidents. It's bananas. Okay, let's see here. Tony Baker says, is thy policy or just society pressure? I don't know what that means. 4 says, Biden worst, Obama next to last. That is inaccurate. 4, ask a question or I'm going to boot you. You're in question jail. Bill M says, you gave a new follower. Oh, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. Flamingo Mo says, I was born when Nixon was office, and yeah, Donald Trump is the worst. Stephen Peterson says, what are your thoughts on Trump being put on money? I think it's stupid. I think it's probably a waste of time and resources. It is not, I don't think it's in the top 1,000 worst things that he's ever done. It will be an extremely easy to reverse thing once he is out of office, and I think that we should, because I do not believe that we should allow him to keep his stupid fucking monuments to himself that he is erecting at great cost to the taxpayers, if not in money, but at least in opportunity cost. Sekhmet says, can you explain the difference between a leftist and a liberal? People will argue the semantic difference between those two labels. The way that I understand it is that liberals are kind of like the centrist people on the left, and leftists are the more extreme left-wing people. Okay, let's see here. Mr. G says, yeah, okay, so presidents who owned slaves were better people. Do you think that Trump wouldn't own slaves if it was legal? I know that I think it's very likely that Trump has owned slaves. Like, I don't have any evidence that that's true, but like, if you're trying to claim that previous presidents who have owned slaves were worse, as though Trump wouldn't have slaves, I would bet money. Like, if we could do a full forensic accounting of every minute of Trump's life, like one of those impossible, like you go to heaven and you're able to see like everything he's ever done in his entire life, I would bet money that he has owned slaves in his life. 4 says, what was the purpose of the No Kings rally besides a paycheck for the geriatrics? I don't even see where that conspiracy theory makes any sense for. Congratulations, you're out of here. Rich was here, says he literally idolizes Andrew Jackson, if that tells you anything. Yeah. I remember I read a biography of Andrew Jackson, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure I could tell you a couple of good things Andrew Jackson did. Obviously, he was a net negative for America and for the Native Americans specifically. But I would still say Andrew Jackson was a better president and than Donald Trump was. Martin McClure says, what do you think about JFK? I'm not like an expert in JFK, but he seemed like an okay dude to me. Storm is Coming says, why are red southern states high welfare, power, education? Why? Can you clean up that question? I'm not really sure what you're asking there. Bitnevo says, does a person like Trump accept defeat via the files, or is the big red button his revenge and out? I'm not particularly worried about that, Bitnevo. Okay, scrolling down the bottom, Hyen says, what would you do if you were the USA president on North Korea? Ooh, that is a really good question, Hyen. And it's difficult because you have a like the worst of every possible world in North Korea. It is not just that they are adversarial to America. It is not just that they are harming their own citizens. It is not just that they have nuclear weapons. It is not just that it is a repressive authoritarian regime that is instigating military conflicts and continuing to escalate their military technology. Like, all of those things combined make it a very difficult country to engage with, and I don't know if cutting off North Korea is as effective because they're able to align with adversarial nations like Iran and China. So what do you do? I don't know if, so there was a model that the Obama administration used for adversarial nations like Iran and like Cuba of outreach and negotiation. And I do think that that worked really well with those two nations specifically, like normalizing relations with Cuba, the Iran nuclear deal, etc. I don't know if that would work for North Korea. I think that we should start looking at options that are more in that direction because North Korea has been cut off for a long time and it does not seem to be getting any better over there, both its relationship to America and the way that they take care of their citizens. Bone Crusher says, if could have changed one thing that Trump has done in any of his terms, question mark, one thing that Trump did. There's just so many things, Bone Crusher. Good Lord. I don't know. I don't know. That's really hard. I think probably USAID. Like he enabled Doge to destroy USAID, and a lot of people were hurt by that decision. A lot of children died because of that decision, and it did not save Americans any money. Okay. But Rich was here says warp speed vaccination. That's like one of the only good things that he did. Rich was here. Tony Baker says, what do you believe the Republican Party has done well during this term? Just one, keeping it nice. I honestly, I don't believe that I have to do that. You know, the Republican Party voted in favor of releasing the Epstein files. You know, I'm hostile to the idea of centrism for centrism's sake. I'm hostile to the idea that I have to, in order to prove my bipartisan, is funny, my bipartisan and objective bona fides, that I have to say something nice about the dude who's stabbing me in the throat currently, you know? Okay, IRL Notre Dame says, Nick Fuentes, thoughts on him? So Nick Fuentes describes himself as a misogynist and a racist and an anti-Semite. And so those are bad qualities. So I think he's probably a bad guy. Sky says, how do midterms work? So the same as any other election. They just happen in between presidential elections. And a lot of senators and every single member of the House is up for re-election every 2 years. And so it is equally important to go vote in those elections as it is to vote every 4 years in the presidential elections. But midterms happen every 2 years. Elections happen every 2 years. It's either the same year as a presidential election or it's in between presidential elections. What's up, Average Joe? Continuing to flirt with stream elements, I see. John Abbott says, change one thing Trump did. Continue breathing. That's pretty funny, John Abbott. Okay. John Abbott says, many of the presidents who own slaves saw it as a necessary evil. Anyone who believes Trump would view chattel slavery as evil is fooling themselves. Completely accurate. Okay. Caffeine-free Uncle D says, do centrists delay progress? That is a really good question, caffeine-free. So if you ask me, I believe yes. The answer to that question is yes. But I also believe that there are very smart people out there who can make a very substantive and accurate argument that we do need centrists because Democrats can't win elections everywhere. And so there are places in this country where Democrats have won House and Senate seats because they were centrists. And if they tried to run as progressives, they wouldn't. Now, again, I personally believe that progressives will eventually be successful everywhere because their policies are popular with everybody. But, you know, it's really difficult to fight messaging around what it means to be a Democrat, what it means to be a far left Democrat, especially in states that are reliably conservative. Kathy says, what do you think about the SAVE Act? The SAVE Act is a massive voter suppression bill. It solves no problems. It only creates other problems. Chris Lamont says, how do we get the ability to vote no on a candidate since I don't want to vote for any of them? So first of all, Chris Lamont, I think that it is a little hyperbolic to not want to vote for any of the candidates. Like, the better is better and worse is worse. And so if you vote for better candidates, then you don't get worse candidates. I think the closest thing to be able to vote no on a candidate is ranked choice voting. And the only way that you get ranked choice voting is by voting for Democrats, because Republicans are trying to make ranked choice voting illegal. Bone Crusher says, is there anything you are hoping for with the next president? There are so many things. I think that I think electoral reform needs to be part of the agenda. I think that rebalancing the Supreme Court needs to be part of the agenda. I think establishing some rules where norms were previously only, I think that's going to be really important. I think that, I think income inequality, climate change, pollution, I think those are going to be like the main issues for the next Democratic president. Always True says, wow, speaker utters party lines, but no, nothing, just a party line reader. That's not true, Always Truth. Would you like to ask a question or would you like to get blocked? Let me know. Tony Baker says, who should I vote next election? Doesn't it matter the person's views, not specific party? So that is inaccurate, Tony Baker. So the way that you need to look at elections is this. In the primaries, you vote for the person. In the general election, you vote for the party. So in the primary election, if you consider yourself a Democrat or Republican or whatever, you should vote for each individual person based on their individual beliefs and their governing history and stuff like that. But where the general election is concerned, if you believe in the policies of the Democratic Party, but you don't like the candidate that won the primary, like, you should still vote for them, because that Democrat being in that seat is going to help the Democrats that you like better. But having a Republican in that seat is going to be worse for everybody. Odin's son, great to see you again, says, did you ever happen to look into the earmarks? I am staunchly against them. Are there specific ones that you're talking about? If there's ever anything you want me to check out, just send me a DM to remind me. Otherwise, I can forget. And to everybody who's watching now, we got about 10 minutes left. If you like what I'm doing here and you want to support it, it is your support that allows this show to be successful. And so you can support it in free ways, like liking and sharing and telling your friends how great the live stream is. If you want to support it financially, you can. You don't have to, obviously. I know we're all struggling, but if you have the dollars and you want to give them to me because you think what I'm doing here is good, then the mechanisms do exist for you to do that. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send bits on Twitch. You can be a super fan on TikTok. You can become a subscriber on Twitch. And if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for free. Costs you $0 and helps me out a ton. You can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Link is in the bio. Evil Dean says, do you agree with socialism, communism? Why or why not? I think there's good things in all of those political philosophies. I think a mixed model is probably best. A little bit of capitalism, a little bit of socialism, a little bit of communism. Tony Baker says, how do you feel about abolitionist for abortion? I do not believe in abortion abolition. Abortion abolition does not decrease the number of abortions that happen. It just makes pregnancy more dangerous for women. Always Truth says, how do we get your tomato? What the hell does that mean, Always Truth? Oh, I see what you're doing. You're asking a question so that you don't get booted. Well, see you later. Blake Chandia says, why do not support Trump? Just asking. That's a really big question, Blake. But here's the shortest that I could. Okay. Trump is one of the most wildly corrupt, incompetent, dangerous people that has ever existed. There is a ton of evidence that he is a racist grifter. He is all over the Epstein files, whether or not that implicates him in anything illegal or any PDF activity. There sure is a lot of smoke there, you know? So yeah, that's probably the simplest way that I can put it. He's the president of the United States and he has a cryptocurrency. That is like a massive violation of his oath of office. It is a massive conflict of interest. Blake Chandia says, Trump as a person is terrible, but Trump as a president is good. That is inaccurate. Blake Chandia, the stock market is crashing. Cost of living is going up. Cost of living crisis, starting an irresponsible forever war in the Middle East. Tons of money wasted on ICE and CPB and on military incursions when everybody is struggling to pay for food or pay for rent or pay for healthcare. His policies have tripled everybody's healthcare costs. There is nothing. He's selling political pardons. Like, there are people who should be in jail right now. There are people who owe Americans money in restitution for their crimes that Trump has forgiven because they have bribed him. So yeah, no, not a good president. Not a good president. Homeless Tommy says, I care about his policies, not his morals. You mean his policies that are skyrocketing everybody's healthcare costs, that are skyrocketing the cost of gasoline, that are making home ownership impossible, that are making healthcare impossible to get. Let's see here. Bone Crusher says, what is CBP? Is Customs and Border Patrol. People usually, when they're complaining about Trump's immigration policy, they usually just say ICE. But if you want to be 100% accurate, it is not just ICE that is engaging in this behavior. It is also ICE, and it is ICE, which stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and CBP, which stands for Customs and Border Patrol. So both of those agencies are operating illegally and barbarically, unconscionably. All right, Platinum Soul Lady says, don't forget the trillions lost in M35 sales maintenance, which would have gone through into the 2050s. Oh, I have no idea about that, Platinum, but it makes sense to me. All right, Bone Crusher, you're welcome. Tony Baker says, if they say Trump should be imprisoned for policy, why not Obama as well for what happened in Afghanistan? I'm not really sure what the connection there is. Like, what do you think Obama did in Afghanistan that equals what Trump is currently doing? Do you mean, is it similar to Iran? Is that what you're saying? Because that is inaccurate. Homeless Tommy says, most of the people in the U.S. eat 4 times as much food as they need. Witness obesity. Homeless Tommy, are you arguing that the cost of living crisis is good because Americans eat too much food? That is a pretty bad take, in my opinion. Because there is not an amount of food that we can cut down on that will make it so that we can afford a house or afford healthcare or afford college for our children. Tony Baker says, sorry, Biden for pulling the troops. Oh, so you were saying that if Trump should be imprisoned, then should Biden be imprisoned for the Afghanistan withdrawal? So that's a really good question, Tony Baker. So there's a big difference between Trump starting a war in Iran and Biden maintaining the pulling out the troops from Afghanistan that Trump himself started. So the rhetoric around Biden, quote unquote, messing up the Afghanistan withdrawal is extremely unfair to the Biden administration. Like, if you talk to people who actually know what was going on in Afghanistan at the time, they will tell you that what the Biden administration did was a fucking miracle. Because during Trump's first term, he arranged for the troop pullout with, what was it? Was it with ISIS or the Taliban? I think it was the Taliban, right? So yeah, he was negotiating with the Taliban for American troops to leave Afghanistan, and the deal that he got with the Taliban was an extremely shitty deal. Like, it did not give us nearly enough time to get our troops out of there safely, and it released, like, I think it was like thousands of terrorists from jail, right? I can't remember the exact number, but it was something bananas. It was like 2,000 imprisoned Taliban terrorists were released because of this deal that Trump negotiated. 5,000. Okay, so it was 5,000 Taliban terrorists were released based on this deal. So Biden gets into office, and he has this impossible timeline for the troop withdrawal. He is able to negotiate a short extension with the Taliban. The Taliban did not honor that extension as well as they could have, but it was at least a little bit more time. So yes, 100%, it was sloppy and people got hurt who did not need to get hurt, but that was Trump's fault. Like, a better deal could have been negotiated from fucking Mr. Art of the Deal over there. Do you know what I mean? Let me know what you think about that. Purple Rant says, I don't really understand the Israel and Palestine war. Purple Rants, it's a pretty big topic. I'll give you the shortest possible answer. And keep in mind that I'm ignoring a lot of nuance to try to give you as concise of a summary as humanly possible. So, Israel, the country, has been really bad to all of its neighboring countries, particularly Palestine. They are a much stronger country than Palestine because of how much support America has given them over the past couple of decades with money and weapons and things like that. The people of Palestine have been really upset about that, and so half of Palestine is what's called the West Bank, and half of Palestine is what's called Gaza, and half of Palestine is being ruled by what's called the Palestinian Authority, and the other half of Palestine is being run by a terrorist organization called Hamas. And Hamas is kind of like Palestine's response to what Israel has been doing to them, which again has been not good. Like, people have described it as war crimes and genocide and shit like that. And so the people of Palestine voted for Hamas to be in charge of them, really only half of them. And Hamas is a terrorist organization that was doing war crimes against the people of Israel. And so because they've basically been engaged in this escalatory war against each other, like Hamas versus Israel. But because both Hamas and Israel are doing war crimes, a lot of the citizens, a lot of the innocent civilians on both sides are getting hurt. And that is just making both sides angrier at the other side, when it is the governing bodies that are responsible. Like, people in Israel should be way madder at their own governments than the people in Palestine. And the people in Palestine should be way angry at their government than the people of Israel. That is the shortest version that I could possibly give you. Let's see here. You're welcome, Purple Rants. I really hope that helped. And there's a way longer answer to be given. Adel Main says, "Hey, are you pro-choice perchance?" I am pro-choice. Tony Baker says, "Do you agree that the cartel should be listed as a terrorist organization, as Trump says?" I don't think so. It seems a little... Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That one's a little over my head. My gut reaction is that is something that Trump wants so that he can justify military incursions into Mexico. I don't think that there is a more substantive, good reason why you would want to do that. Like, it might be possible that the technical definition of a terrorist organization, that the cartel fits that. I just don't know. And just based on the way that Trump does everything, it seems as though it's bullshit. Okay, let's see here. Miss Lily says, "Is it true that 12 million protests we over the government? If so, how?" So that's a little bit of an oversimplification, Miss Lily. That, I believe, comes from a political scientist named Erica Chenoweth, who said that if 3.5% of the population is against an authoritarian government, then they win. But what does winning mean? So winning can mean that Trump tells ICE and CPB to go, fire their weapons into a polling line of people lining up to vote in a Democratic area, and those people saying no. Like, that could be a version of the 12 million rule, like a success in that case. But yeah, that's like, what do you call it? There's a lot of nuance there. There's a lot of specifics that, the devil's in the details there. Adel Main says, "Are you pro-Palestine?" Because I'm 100% pro-Israel and pro-life. If you want a debate, so I don't believe in debates. Adel, I am pro the citizens of Palestine the same way that I am pro the citizens of Israel, but I am against the governments of Palestine the same way that I am against the government of Israel. And you can be pro-life if you want. I just think that pro-life policies are not good. Like, more people die because of pro-life policies than pro-choice policies. If you want to discuss this over the live stream, then come back tomorrow. Hold on a second. Matt Moody says, "You seem like a guy that only votes Democrats all his life, no matter what." Yeah, proudly. And there's 1,000 ways that I justify that. Everybody should. Like, nobody should vote for Republicans. That's... Yeah. I mean, just the fact that the Republican Party is in charge of Congress right now, and they are allowing the president to have a cryptocurrency and sell political pardons to people who have done crimes against American civilians, that alone should be a reason why nobody ever votes for Republicans ever again. So yeah, Adele, I gotta wrap things up, but if you ever want to discuss any of that stuff again on the live stream, let me know. Again, I don't do debates. I do discussions. I don't believe that debates are productive. If there are any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, DMs are open. I want you guys to reach out to me. Please reach out to me. I want to be a resource that you use to be more involved and more informed about politics. So however I can help you with that, use me and abuse me. Use me until I am all used up. DMs are open. You can email me through my website, or you can hit me up via my Discord. The Discord channel is a great resource also because there's recommendations there for books and podcasts and for civic actions that you can take and for nonprofit organizations that you should 100% be donating your time and money to. Special thank you to all of my regular financial contributors, Muzz King, Pliff, Average Joe, It's the Rocketeer, the two Seans, D, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, and Patrick. If you want to get thanked at the end of the show as well, join the Patreon for as little as $1 a month, become a TikTok super fan or a Twitch subscriber. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And lastly, just my heartfelt plea that everybody here do the work, because it is only through us doing the work that we'll be able to get out of the current hole that we are in. And Tony Baker, my opinion of Charlie Kirk is that he should not have been assassinated. I do not condone any kind of violence. I condemn it in the strongest possible language. So whatever dude that shot him, I forget what their name was. That was a crime, and they shouldn't have done that. They should go to jail. But that does not mean that Charlie Kirk was a good guy. Charlie Kirk was a liar and a con artist, and I'm happy to go into more detail on that tomorrow when I am back. On my live stream. So yeah, see you guys here tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Do the work. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye. Goodbye. Goodbye.